afternoon. I'm honored to have with me today 3 members of USA Board. We just finished a delightful luncheon and they now want me to talk to you a bit. I know your 4th anniversary reunion is coming up at Fort Benning. And once again, I would like very much to be there, but I'm a little less mobile than I used to be. And I'm sorry I have to regret. But they're giving me an opportunity to talk to you this afternoon. Now, just as a little bit of background, I was laid up some months ago, and I decided that when I would use my time by writing a little bit. As you know, biographies are written about distinguished individuals. I started writing about what I call a distinguished battalion. It's the 8th Tank Battalion of the 4th Armored Division, and it was my battalion. And the reason I'm writing this is, as I wrote, an hour here, 2 hours here, and the pages started to accumulate, I realized that it was indeed an unusual battalion. And you maybe think I'm stretching things, exaggerating greatly, but the subtitle of this battalion is 15 Extraordinary Achievements. You're shaking your head, that's not possible. But I believe that my battalion had at least 15 extraordinary achievements. And the sad thing about the battalion is it was created, that never existed until September 12, 1943. That's when the armor divisions had a reorganization. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th armor divisions were heavy divisions. Starting with the 4th, they became light divisions. They gave away regiments and acquired combat commands. Where the battalions were light, in the regimental organization, the regiment would do everything for the battalions. Now the battalions became self-sufficient. So in the 4th Armored Division, we had the 35th Armored Regiment and the 37th Armored Regiment. They produced the 35th Tank Battalion and the 37th Tank Battalion. And out of nowhere, we created the 8th Tank Battalion. We took the odds and ends from the others and built up this organization. Now these were experienced individuals, but they're all individuals. They had to come together into this battalion. At that point I was the S3, the training officer, and it was my job to train this outfit. And we trained through the United States, through the months of 43, and we trained again for 6 months in England, in the Salisbury Plains of England. And by the time of the Normandy invasion, we were ready to go. And it was my battalion, the 8th Tank Battalion, that led the 4th Armored Division, which led the attack on the 28th of July, 1944, the breakout. And it was this battalion that fought for 4 days. We captured a place called Coutances, which was the target of the 7th Corps. We were under General Bradley then, 1st Army, because there was no such thing as 3rd Army. We drove down the Normandy Peninsula. We captured Coutances. It was the target of the 7th Corps. We beat them to it. We continued down, and we, at the end of the 4th day, we reached a place called Avranches, which was the anchor of the Normandy Peninsula. It opened the door to all of France, Brittany to the south and all of France. So it was a key objective. In fact, Hitler launched an attack some weeks later and drove to within 15 miles of Avranches. If he had done that, he would have cut the 3rd Army and the 1st Army. Well, we captured that. And before we did that, we had a counterattack on the evening of the 31st, and we fought all night, and it was one of the most one-sided battles. We killed hundreds of horses, half-tracks, trucks, everything, and fortunately there were no tanks. But anyway, Avalanche was seized on the 31st, and the next day the 4th Armored Division moved out into Normandy, and that was a historic day because on August 1st, it was the day that the Patton's Army, the 3rd Army, became active. So that was our first, I go into great detail in my writings about this. That was a quick summary of the actions of the 8th Tank Battalion of 4th Armored Division. Then some weeks later, we had driven down across France. My tank battalion had gained 328 miles in 12 days. We reached the Meuse River. We were 60 miles from the German border, another 80 miles Rhine River, 140 miles, and we had done this in 12 days. And Patton says we can be at the Rhine in 10 days, and we believe them because we had gone 328 miles in 12 days. We could certainly go 160 miles in 10 days. But it never happened because we were stopped cold because they said lack of gasoline. Well, as you know, Eisenhower gave priority to General Montgomery for an operation called Market Garden, and we sat for 10 days. And it was the absolute best tank weather you could imagine, September. And after 10 days, it was on a Sunday. I'd gone to Mass that morning. That afternoon, I was giving a tank gunnery class. At about 2 o'clock, we received orders, move now. So my troops had been laying out their bedding and their personal items, and we had been living there for 10 days. Now we had to gather them up, jam them in the tanks, and get moving. So we moved, and when nightfall fell, we were only 12 miles from a major objective. We had heard about it. We knew it was going to be defended. It was called the Moselle River. When we got there, it was nightfall. We dreaded the next day because we didn't know what was out there. They had all this time to gather their forces, and they had a good defensive element, I'm sure, waiting for us. So in the morning, we moved out of a clearing, across the road, and there was Bayonne on the Moselle. But we looked, and the big bridge was blown, and nothing was happening. And we soon heard that the 35th Infantry Division had tried to get a bridgehead. They had gotten a bridgehead, and they were repulsed. Well, there was nothing to do. Nothing was happening.
As the commander of the lead battalion on the ground for the relief of Bastogne.
No.
Oh, no.
No. See, it gets involved. First of all, when we made the march that I mentioned to you, we ended up, my battalion ended up at a place called Nives, and my combat command was a place called Les Rosiers. This was on the Neufchâteau-Bastogne Road. And that night, when we got to Neufchâteau and turned, I had never heard of Neufchâteau, I'd never heard of Bastogne. So we kept getting these instructions to keep rolling, and finally, toward the end of the march, we were expecting to be hit at any time. It never happened. So finally, we stopped. And this was at midnight after going all day, all night, day, all. So I stopped a place called Nives, and at that time, I was 12 kilometers from Bastogne. And this now is, we got there the night of the 19th. The next morning, it's the 20th. Now, I told you that I slept well, but I was up early, and I get a message from my combat commander, General Dager. He says that I'm to send a task force into Bastogne. And I said, General Dager and I got along beautifully, but I say, hey, we just gotten here, I've had patrols and tanks out, but we really don't know what's in there. Isn't it a little soon to send us piecemeal in there? Maybe we should send a bigger force in there. And he said, you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but General Middleton insists that I take in the combat command, and I fought him. He finally compromised and said, okay, send in the task force. So I took my executive officer, Bert P. Ezell, Captain Ezell. The task force later became Ezell, Task Force Ezell. And I had one tank, A company of my tanks, one armored infantry company, one battalion of field artillery. And this task force went in. I was told to have Ezell report to General McAuliffe inside Bastogne. So he went into Bastogne, got there, and he was met by the operations officer of the 101st. He said, you're not going to see McAuliffe, you're going to see a General William wait a minute. He's the guy that pinned the DSC on me, but at that time he was the combat. I'll think of it in a minute. Begins with a B. But anyway, he was a colonel commanding CCB of the 10th Armored Division. And he was the one that they told Ezell to report to. And Ezell reported to him, and he started to give Ezell instructions. He was going to employ them in Bastogne, but Ezell suddenly got a message, and the message came from me. And the message said, Bert, pull out and come right back. And he was astonished. And the colonel was astonished. So he turned around and came out. When he came out, he was passing on the road that he had just gone into 2 or 3 hours before, wide tracks showing that something heavy had moved since he had gone into Bastogne. And as he kept going out, he found 2 battalions of artillery, 155s, that were idling. They had been abandoned. He found a truck with the driver's head blown off. So something happened. And what was happening, the Germans had gone through, and there was a lapse in their advance. One of these imponderables of the battlefield. So my tankers hooked up the tanks. They brought some of these prime movers into the bivouac area. And that was the day that Bastogne was being cut off. And it took us 6 days until the 26th to relieve the 101st Airborne. So I say this is a very complicated story, and how we got now to the attack. We didn't attack until the 22nd, and we attacked towards Chaumont. We attacked in a completely different area. This was the Neufchâteau-Bastogne highway. We were way over to the east. When we attacked, it was on a logging trail. So that, it gets complicated. And then there's been a lot hereafter about historians. Why didn't Middleton go in with the combat command in? He may have had enough force to slow down the Germans. So, but Patton had been at Verdun. But anyway, after we pulled back, I went into an area a few miles from where we had ended from the Neufchâteau Road. And that was where I got my orders to attack Chaumont. We had to move, and I was told that, first of all, I backtracked. Patton was at Verdun on the 19th, the day I was moving. We were moving before anyone ever told him to move. He decided. He had so much acumen, but he decided to send us at midnight out. And I later learned that we were supposed to go to Arlon. And that's where the rest of the division came. That's where the 26th Division came. That's where the 80th came. That's where the 3 divisions that launched the attack on Bastogne, hitting the underbelly, attacked from. When I got to Arlon, I thought that's where I was going to stop. But that's when General Dager obviously had orders from somewhere. He turned me around, and we went west to Neufchâteau, from Neufchâteau on the Neufchâteau-Bastogne Road. So he must have gotten, General Dagan must have gotten orders from someone. Well, the orders came from Bradley. Patton didn't know it. And when Patton heard about it, he said, pull them out. So, because he had already promised General Eisenhower that he was going to attack with 3 divisions, the 4th, 26th, and the 8th. 3 divisions in 48 hours. And if he didn't have one combat command, particularly 4th Armored, which was going to be his left flank, he would have just been in trouble. As I mentioned, we'd been attacking through November, 4 terrible weeks. We reached the point where we were going to go on to Germany, but we were in no shape. Men can only stand so much endurance and vehicles. So someone in their infinite wisdom said, you need a break. So when we were 8 miles from the German border, ready to attack across the border, we were pulled back because we'd gone 4 weeks without a hot meal, 4 weeks without a minute of maintenance. And we pulled back to the rear, and I was assigned by division to a little town called Domnom-le-Durs. So we were relieved by the 1st 12th Armored Division, and now the 4th Armored is going back to try to reconstitute, rehabilitate itself, and to get ready for the attack to the east. Well, when I learned that we're going to a place called Domnom-le-Durs, I sent an officer from each company run ahead to be the billeting officer, to make arrangements with the folks that are in the city and to find places for each of the companies. So off they went. And when they turned around and we started moving, I decided I want to see the town before my battalion got there. So I got my Jeep and drove down a main road, shortest secondary road, into a dirt road. And when I got there, I stopped and I said, is this Domnom-le-Durs? There, as I mentioned, were the houses, half barn, half home, this big manure container. It's raining, the stuff is draining down the road, and I looked and I said, I can't believe that I'm expected to put my battalion, to crowd my battalion into this tiny place. But then I soon heard the first tank make the turn, that 90-degree turn. They were on the way, and I was standing where I did when I waited for Patton. They came by, there was no delay, and somehow or other, in no time, without any stopping, that battalion, tanks, half-tracks, jeeps, trucks, had all found a place to put their vehicles, find a place to have a shelter, and by the end of the day, things were quiet. The town had absorbed the battalion. And I have said for years, the sound of a good outfit is the rapidity with which it digs in. They dug in no time, and that was our home for several days. We didn't know how long we were going to be there. So the weather was bad, it was still rainy, cold, and the next day, tired as they were, the men got right at it because they started to get the vehicles in shape and the weapons in shape, not knowing how long we'd be there. And 2 or 3 days passed while they were hard at it. And about the end of the 3rd day, I was down visiting one of the companies, and a runner came to me and said, you're wanted at the battalion headquarters. We call it the CP, quote. It was in the living room of a smaller home, and I got there, I got on the radio, and it was the operations officer of the division, and he's telling me, he said, you're going to have a visitor tomorrow. And I said, oh no, not another visitor. We had a British general and a couple of other people visit. And he said, it's the old man. And I said, that's different. And he said he will be there. You're to be at the town square at 9 o'clock. Have your troops continue doing what they're doing. And you'll be ready at 9 o'clock to meet him at the town square. So, as I mentioned earlier when we talked, you talk about rumors sweeping a group. About 20 minutes after I knew, every man in the battalion knew that Patton would visit them next day. So that was a big topic of conversation when they lined up for chow that night. And I got my chow. I decided to go to bed a little early, not knowing what the next day would produce. So I went to sleep. I slept, as you might expect, quite fitfully. I was up early, and when I awoke, I looked out and the sun was shining. And I couldn't believe it. I said, this must be patent weather. So I got out and I got my breakfast. The troop got the breakfast, started working like they always did. I went down to get ready to meet Patton. I could see my work, my men looking over their shoulder, seeing what to expect, looking to see what to expect. And men lived in these homes now, and they had the vehicles behind them. There were many, many in the rear areas. They drifted by. Every man wanted to get a look at the old man. So they came by, and I kept looking at my watch. It got close to 9, and I was standing at a place, not the town square, because it didn't have a town square, but outside the Catholic church, where there was an open area where the parishioners met for Mass. And that's where I stood. I said, this is going to be the town square for me. But anyway, I looked at my watch about 9 o'clock, and just after that I heard this loud screech. I looked to my left, and I saw this Jeep trying to negotiate that 90-degree turn, caromed and righted itself, and then sped toward me as fast as it could. And the closer it got to me, I could see an individual beside the driver. He was holding on the windshield. He had with his left hand, he had a riding crop in his right hand, and all I could see as he approached was stars. The sun was shining on him. I saw 3 stars here, 3 stars on his collar, 3 stars here, 3 stars on his, and I must have counted about 25 stars. But anyway, when the driver saw me, he jammed on his brakes, and it came to a sudden halt. I stood up to salute, and I didn't realize it until then that while I'd been waiting, there were 3 farm animals, like Clydesdale horses, drinking at a trough behind me. And when the Jeep came to a screeching halt, they pulled back and came by me and by General Patton, who was leaning down from his Jeep, and they wallowed out and started down the main street. And his first words to me were, "Ha! I say I've started a cavalry charge." So then he hopped out of the Jeep, smartly started to move toward the troops. They were waiting, and he was waiting to talk to them. So he went to group after group after group, and as he talked to them, he encouraged them, praised them, had tidbits, kidded them a little bit. He was just an unusual individual. He had them eating out of his hand, and he did this for about 45 to an hour. And when we got to the end of the road, there was no place to go. He turned his Jeep around, tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Keep up the good work." He jumped up on his Jeep, grabbed the windshield, and off it went at the same speed that it had coming in. And now the soldiers stood up, they were all saluting him, and he had his riding crop, and he was pointing at them, and he was like the old Roman commander reviewing his troops.
So, General, were you surprised when General Patton showed up that it was just General Patton?
I was astonished, not surprised. This doesn't happen. This was a 3-star general, an army commander arriving alone in a Jeep with only a driver and a map. No entourage, no MPs, no staff cars, no chief of staff, just he and the driver. He said he was going to visit me in this remote little town at 9. He was there in this remote little town at 9. Thank you very much to you 3 for giving me an opportunity to talk. I enjoy talking to you. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. I wish you well. I hope you have a great reunion, great homecoming. I'll be thinking of you, and maybe we can get together one of these days and keep charging.